Hey, what's up, guys? We're into part two of the black metal influences on my my band, my music, Moonlit Tomb, right? Black metal influences and more. You'll see. I'm an all-around metalhead, but even more than that, I like soundtrack music. I like the old soundtracks, whether it was the prog rock stuff or the disco, the electronic stuff, the synth stuff. Yeah, but I guess I'll give a little nod here, more than a nod, to the original black metal bands, Bathory, Venom, and Celtic Frost. Hellhammer. I always liked the Hellhammer demos more than the official one they had, but Morbid Tales, To Megatherion. Uh, I even like the so-called glam metal stuff, because, like I said, I'm an all-around metalhead. These early bands, there's a lot of people saying like, "Oh, these are proto thrash. They're not really black metal." Okay, English. Can you read it? Thank you. Okay, this is the first wave of black metal. Okay, Venom, of course, naming the genre, influencing, even though these other two bands would deny it because they used to have a war of words with each other. It was like pro wrestlers going at it. Of course, Hellhammer in Switzerland, Tom G. Warrior, and Quarthon, Bathory. Right? The first album was two other guys, and then it was pretty much just him. Um, these and there's other bands too. Of course, Sodom, right? Destruction's first couple albums. I would argue even Creator. You have all the South American bands. I'm just saying, not to belabor the point. First wave of black metal. Okay, this is what creates your thrash metal. Your thrash metal comes out of this. I don't want to hear that this is not black metal. This is black metal. Okay, this is what Euronymous was trying to capture the feel of just a couple of years later. The Death Crush LP, EP, excuse me, in '87. We're trying to recapture this thing. Of course, Venom and all these guys influenced, of course, death metal and everything else too, not just thrash metal. Um, it's all else I could say about these bands is that it's great because you can see the transfer point between the old metal, right, the classic metal, and this new extreme to come. Meanwhile, these guys, what are they listening to? They're listening to Motorhead. They're listening to The Exploited, Discharge, right? Real British, punk, but also of course, the old metal, Sabbath, but Motorhead in particular with Lemmy. You see the way they dress, the leather jackets, the bullet belts, the spikes. All the lyrics are about Satan, but like in a horror movie Halloween type way. Yeah, so enough respect to these bands, the rawness, the still linked to some kind of older kind of metal, but just man, these guys pushed it to the brink. So, what can I say? All fast as hell. Celtic Frost had some really nice riffs. Venom was still a very underrated band to me. I remember I met Eddie Trunk, if you know who Eddie Trunk is, at Chiller Theater years ago. The guy was like 6'7", and I always asked him. I said, Eddie, why don't you play Venom on your Friday Night Rock show that used to be on, obviously all over the country, but used to be on in the New York area on Friday, right? And he says, I know Venom influenced a lot of bands, but I don't really, I didn't like the musicianship. Yeah. And they were too like sloppy and they were too like raw or whatever. So I thought, okay, fair enough. But man, these are great, man. Listen to these if you ever heard of these. These bands also cross over. They had a lot of punk fans of these bands as well. If you see on the patches of like punk rocker jackets. So I'm a big fan of, believe it or not, I like the British punk. Of course, Ramones, Germs, you know, uh, other bands like that, but I'll do that in some other vid. But I want to give respect to the godfathers, the creators of black metal. Alright? Right here, bro. Right here. Respect. And it's not proto thrash. It's black metal, damn it. Friggin' millennial nerds. Okay, now here's a group which is really mostly one guy, but that I really dig. Okay, Mexican black metal. Funereal Moon. They actually spell it like real, right? Instead of like how we would spell it with the just without the A. But that was an older way of spelling it, so it's legit. Funeral Moon. How did I describe them? The guy, I think his name is Ruben Oliveira, has got this still has the name of this project. He has a whole bunch of solo projects now. Apparently, it sounds like he's really drunk now, but it is interesting what he's doing with Funeral Moon. You can see that they have a demo that's on YouTube. I can link to that. And these are like this one is a collection of their work, and this one was like a proper, kind of their second full-length album. But you want to talk about underground, you want to talk about cult, you want to talk about bizarre, you want to talk about like black metal only being one aspect of it, right? And I like how you got the cool like the old gatefold, right? You got like this Aztec death goddess, which makes sense because it's from Mexico. You got the collection of the EPs here, right? But this is not even all of their stuff. Now, how do I describe the music? It's super uber atmospheric horror type music, but it's not all black metal. Later on, they got they got more like kind of the old first wave of black metalish a little bit, and some of that bestial black metal, which I don't understand why they call it that, because it sounds like death metal a little bit maybe. But Funeral Moon, the music was very much, they call it ritual music. A lot of it was very slow and almost like, I don't know, like old horror music, like a horror soundtrack to like an old gothic horror film, a Mexican gothic horror film. I had told you how good the Mexican horror film, black and white horror films were. They were just as gothic and atmospheric as anything you had anywhere else. But getting back to Funeral Moon, just the evil atmosphere, okay? And like I said, the early stuff, I mean, to be frank, the early work was mostly, I think Ruben was on keyboards, and one of the albums he had a live drummer, this one here, but just often as not, it wasn't later until they started incorporating a lot of, electric guitar riffs in there. However, with this stuff, you do have a few songs that are in the fast black metal mode, except they're done with a keyboard. Okay? If you saw the early demos I did way back in 2009, when all I had was a keyboard controller, I didn't even have a guitar. I didn't even know how to plug the one I had in. I just used a distorted organ sound and the guitar sound that was in the program, the GarageBand program, to make sort of guitar riffs. Well, this guy actually did that. Okay, this whole album here is just distorted keyboards for guitar riffs in the songs that are fast, and they're live, and the real drums. It's very interesting. I like it. I think it was a different kind of sound and just the evilness of it. And I'll play some for you now. Werewolf Nightmare. Yeah, that's definitely just a keyboard. Color too. Now I'll play something from a little more typical of their sound. Yeah.
Singing praises among the flames, the first glory wearing the dark lore.
I like the one. I like the one with the female, well, vocals, or I guess spoken word performance.
As living dwellings, in whom the strength of man rejoice, and they are apparelled with ornaments of brightness, such as word wonders in all creatures, whose kingdoms and continuance are as the third and the fourth, strong towers and places of comfort.
And you call it like ritual music. Most of this music's like this, like you had a black mass. Of course, like a horror movie version of it.
Oh, you servants of pleasure, move up here, sing praises unto the earth, and be mighty among us. For that is
He starts, she has orgasming as the song goes on. It's fucking great.
Strong in our comforter. Oh, you
Yeah. I always like the contrast of vocals.
sing praises unto the earth.
Anyway, that's Funeral Moon. Just a small sample of the huge output they've had over the last 20-something years, 30-something years. Amazing. Yeah. Uh-oh. Gonna get in trouble on YouTube. Alright. Alright. Alright, just real quick, obviously, alright, I mean, who the hell, that Dark Throne, I love all the Norwegian bands, I'm gonna say, I really like all of our stuff, but I think, the guy was brilliant, but I'll give it a little, I guess, I think maybe his best album of the early stuff was this one here, because he was starting to get that drone kind of riff, like a very simple riff, that would create the atmosphere. Like he said, so he always brings up that he used to listen to like the European techno music back in the day, and like it's almost like he was trying to capture that with this. Of course, and the next album, which I have somewhere, which was sounded very different. It was very much a step forward, or a step somewhere sideways from this stuff, and then Homeboy ended up in prison. But I want to just obviously, the influence of Bertram musically and otherwise. An album that I admit that I had not heard until relatively recently was the first album he made out of prison, right? Belarus. Very interesting when he talked about recording this album. He had mentioned that the long layoff, being locked up, he couldn't get his drumming skills back. In fact, he had learned to drum just because he didn't have anyone else in the band. He had learned drumming for the first album. I think he practiced like a week. Of course, he was younger, and he couldn't really keep a beat anymore. So he recorded this album. This is almost like Philosophum 2. It's the closest thing to that. But the way he recorded it, as he did in the video where he's working on a chainsaw, he describes how it was not digital. He actually recorded this. He decided to cut and paste the drums because he could only play the drums for a certain amount of time. So he used that technology in order to have the drum beat. And he ended up doing that with the guitars as well. And what you end up with is something, like I said, getting closer to the ambient type techno music, but with, instruments. Really capturing that almost hypnotic feel to it. A very underrated album. I've been listening to this a lot. Obviously, with the stuff I've been doing, I've also been using the cut and paste a bit. I guess you can call that cheating, but hey, man, there's no rules in black metal, remember? Except no rap music, okay? No hip hop in black metal, okay? They got hip hop and country music now. Are you kidding me? So, and I'm gonna do that, Wu-Tang, son. But I'm just saying, alright. And I will say, who's that guy? Yeah, scaring everybody. Track number 6, Kelly Hester. It literally is just a minor bar chord, but Varg, he plays all 6 strings with alternate picking. He doesn't just play the top strings. Very hypnotic song, very very powerful, very like like yeah, it's up there with anything, and it's just like one alternate picked minor bar chord, really interesting. So Borotsum, they threw his ass off Twitter too now. So where we gonna where we last he put up a video of his son, his oldest son, shooting arrows with a high rate of fire. I thought that was really interesting. He's getting ready for the Ice Age. You better get ready too. You better get ready for part 3 of influences on Moonlit Tomb. Aren't you lucky? A legend in the making.